Hello and welcome to the Bones Horror Podcast. This is episode 71. Garth Marenghi. How would you say it?
Marenghi, I think.
Marenghi.
Yeah.
Garth Marenghi's Darkplace. A maverick doctor battles evil in a hospital in Romford. Sounds amazing. So, welcome everyone. It's just me and you in at the moment. Hopefully we may get someone else on, but you never know. Right. This is Larry's pick. Okay. So I was hoping, as it's one of his favourites, that he would actually be here. But I know he was filming. I know he's doing reshoots for his movie. I know there's a lot of work to be done on it because it's hopefully going to go on Prime and things. So he's trying to wrap things up. So if he's not here, that's fair enough. Very important things to get on with. So it's just me and Ewan. Jess has been moving. No internet still, as far as I know. But she may be on next week. You never know. This week, what have I been doing? Watching loads of films, watching 6 episodes of Garth, however you say it.
Garth Marenghi.
Marenghi.
Yeah.
Darkplace. So 6 and just catching up on work and lots of football and things like that. Ewan, what have you been up to?
Well, the sort of usual thing, really. I've just been sort of, reviewing movies and stuff, and TV shows, which I'm sure we'll get to later. I'll tell you what, though, it's funny because sort of on like TV podcasts and stuff, I've heard a lot of critics talk about how they're annoyed at the fact that when they get online screeners, so essentially they're sort of they're sent episodes of TV shows in order to review them, and often on the screen they come up with a watermark so that the critic in question can't copy it and send it off and pirate it and stuff, even though that's probably never going to happen with the critic. And so often the watermark covers a lot of a portion of the screen, and lots of critics go on about they whinge about the fact that it obscures part of the screen and it's really distracting and stuff. I've never really had a problem with it. I can usually ignore it when it comes up, but annoyingly it's happened recently with I won't name the the distributor, but it's
go on.
No, I don't want to get in trouble with them. But the watermark, it's a show from a different country, so there are subtitles, and the watermark is over the subtitles.
Oh, wow!
I would like to take this opportunity for any distributors who are out there. Please check before you put a watermark that is not covering vital subtitles. It's not impossible, because it's like only partially obscures the subtitles, but you have to like get in close and read them.
Yeah.
So I've been sort of spending this week getting a bit annoyed about that. But
was it good though? But you didn't know what was going on.
Well, I tried to email the distributor seeing if I can get it sorted, but I think I have to sort of bite my tongue and just get on with it. But yeah, I'll see if I can watch it tonight and see if I can make sense of what's going on.
Yeah, that would be quite annoying. I'd find that annoying. Greetings, Dan. He's joined us. It's great. We should get him on one day. I'm sure he'd love it. Get subtitles on him.
Yeah.
So let's have a chat about this. I was really hoping Larry was here because it's going to be so difficult, because I did enjoy this. So it was released in 2004, so fairly old.
Yeah,
fairly old. Written by Richard. How do you say his name? Ayadi?
Ayuwadi.
Ayuwadi. And Matthew Holness.
Yep.
Holness,
yeah.
So the Richard played Dean Lerner and Matthew played Garth. They also wrote and directed it, I think, between them.
Yeah. So I think they both wrote it together, and Richard Ayuwadi directed all the episodes.
Yeah. So it starred Alice Lowe. I know her, the Madeline character, from Prevenge. I don't know if you've seen that.
I haven't seen it. I've heard good things though.
Very, very good. I think it was Shudder I watched it on. And it had Matt Berry as Todd Rivers, and that
Yep.
voice is amazing.
It's an amazing voice, isn't it? It's
And
just so distinctive.
is it Todd? Yeah. So when I first watched this, I was getting this feel of kind of the Mighty Boosh, and then I was proved right straight away when most of the cast are in it at
Yeah.
different points.
Mm.
And also a little bit of Red Dwarf. It's like maybe some of the film crew were from Red Dwarf. It just the way it was set out. I don't know. It just maybe it was the era, but it certainly felt like that to me. The comedy is definitely like the kind of thing I would watch, and I watched at that time and still watch now. Tongue in cheek, isn't it? So there was 6 episodes of this. Apparently there was only 4, Larry. Thanks for that. So 6. And it's Rotten Tomato score. What do you think you're in?
Well, it's interesting because I think I know the sort of IMDb score, which is like it's actually all right, sort of like 8.1 or something like that. I wonder, because Rotten Tomatoes is quite international. I wonder if like Americans would get it, if you know what I mean, because it's quite sort of
It is on in America. I think they have it on Peacock, and I don't have that. I don't really know what it is. It's some kind of probably a free streaming service, maybe. I don't know.
Well, it's as far as I know, it's one of those streaming services that runs one package with ads and a more premium one without ads. So it's that sort of
So so there were 6 episodes, and I've kind of listed them. I forgot which one had the broccoli in, so we'll get to that in a bit. It might have been the last one, was it? But
I think it was. Yeah, the last one.
Episode 1 was Once Upon a Beginning, and I think it had a cat in it. But I can't remember too much about that because I was a bit gobsmacked at what I was watching.
Yeah,
I didn't think it would be like now. Yeah,
I mean, so was I. I mean, it's a sort of it's almost sensory overload in some ways when you watch it. It's kind of there are so many things happening at once. It's the sort of I mean, going by the absurdity of it. So basically, it's like it starts off as like a sort of one of these like documentaries about a series that was made in the 80s, a horror series that was made in the 80s, and it's made very much like those documentaries are made. So sort of it reminded me a bit of Mark Kermode's documentary on The Exorcist, Fear of God, which is a very good documentary. It's just stick it out, but it's got those those sort of same kind of very cheesy elements, like those like talking heads and the person and Garth Marenghi like at the top of a staircase, kind of delivering his lines. And and every episode starts off with him reading a section from his novel.
From his novel.
And it's always brilliant because it's just like it's just satirizing like basic horror writing, which is like, and you could sort of see elements of like, I mean, maybe some of the worst paragraphs that Stephen King has written. It's very much sort of trying to take the piss out of that in some ways. And no, it's and the first episode it takes a bit of time to get into. Like, I don't think I got really into it till the second episode, I think.
No. 2 secs. I've just got my internet's kind of failing, so I've got a funny feeling my children are downloading loads of stuff as I'm trying to do this podcast, which would be typical of them, really. Anyway, I'll send that.
What do you think they're downloading?
So, it's probably game updates and stuff like that. There'd be all sorts. So, as Dan's just said here, so the first episode he's put, what the fuck is this? Larry shall burn. And after the second episode, he's thinking, this is actually fun. So hang on. So that's what I found, and especially when we got to Skipper the Eye Child.
I think that's definitely my favorite episode of the lot.
Well, for me, Scotch Mist as well, and Skipper the Eye Child I remember those two. No, especially the art. That was just hilarious.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of. Yeah, he's talking about he reads a bit of his novel in every episode, and then starts acting. So he's he writes it, and then he's the actor in each episode.
Mm.
And the Dean Lerner character is he plays the main man doctor or boss, but he's also what else is he in?
Yeah, so I mean, so Richard Ayoade, he plays Dean Lerner, who in the real life of this show is the publisher of Garth Marenghi's horror books.
There you go. Yeah.
And when Garth Marenghi goes to making his horror series, Garth Marenghi's Darkplace, he plays the head doctor of because the Darkplace is Darkplace Hospital. So it's kind of like it's a sort of a soapy medical drama, but wrapped in a sort of horror TV show atmosphere, kind of like sort of vaguely Twilight Zoney. But also, I haven't seen many horror series from that time, but you can kind of see that they've got like they've sort of taken from loads of references from various cheesy and sort of not sound insulting, but sort of the sort of cheaper and tackier horror movies that were probably made at the time. So maybe sort of like Hammer horror kind of vibe.
They're amazing, Hammer horror.
Yeah, I have to confess I haven't seen many of them, but it's quite interesting how I quite like how he's sort of how Garth Marenghi's Darkplace kind of it both takes the piss out of the fact that a lot of those films were cheap and tacky, and the sound's not quite right, and the shots are weird, and the acting is quite bad. But there's also a kind of there's a deep seated appreciation for them or respect for them. Also, I yeah, exactly. Like the video is being shown up now of Richard Ayoade shooting a shotgun in a graveyard.
And then it pans back to him, and he's just stood there. No, see what I mean? It's just, it's so good, you know.
Yeah. My wife died. I could barely finish my lunch. It's great because I think also it is his perform. I mean that's what Richard Ayoade does best, is that sort of deadpan nasal nonsense that he's able to do so well. And you can clearly see he made IT Crowd I think a couple of years after it, and you can see like elements of Morris Moss, his character in IT Crowd, in that character. Especially, I mean, it was funny, I watched let's see. I went to Kent over the weekend, and I watched the third episode mostly on my phone in my living room, and then I decided to watch I had to get a train, so I had to watch the last 5 minutes on the train. And I tell you what, it was so difficult not to laugh out loud on the carriage because there was a specific bit when the episode kind of wraps up, and so the Dean Lerner character, the head of the hospital, after the whole debacle with Skipper the Eye Child, the two doctors go, "We're going to see how the guy's doing. Do you want to come along?" And then Richard Ayoade's character goes, "No." And then just turns around and goes. And I tell you what, I had to struggle to keep my lips together in the carriage, and it's that sort of it's so. Jess has just come into the chat.
Nice.
And it's very sort of representative of those really sort of like, because Richard Ayoade knows how in detail how films are made, and he's very much a cinephile in that respect. So he knows what works and what doesn't, and I think he knows when directors get it wrong. It's a good example because we actually, Lawrence and I watched this. We were shown a clip of this in uni, specifically to show how not to make films, basically. And I'm going to make a claim now, and it might be wrong. I reckon that every filmmaker or every aspiring filmmaker has at some point been Garth Marenghi, because I think there are just so many. Ayoade and Matthew Holness do it so well, where they manage to show all the mistakes that filmmakers make when at the beginning, because filmmakers aren't born with all this information. They don't know that they have to sync up the sound properly. They don't know that you can't have a sort of um a close up where there's a delay and then someone enters in that sort of really basic way. Obviously, when you're watching it, it's obvious, but when you're making the thing, it's not. And you're at sort of amateur status, you don't know these things, and so it's hilarious to watch it, at least from my perspective, because you can see. It just reminded me of my time at uni, because everyone at uni made these mistakes, either out of laziness or just not, or they just didn't research, or they just didn't have the appropriate experience in order to make what they wanted to make. But but that added another layer of hilarity to me. It's also again, it's representative of those sort of cheaper movies. Like there was that, like I think a few episodes clearly took from sort of Italian giallo movies, and for some reason, Italy's films, mainly westerns and horrors, have a sort of tradition of not syncing sound
Yeah,
properly.
yeah.
I don't know where that comes from, but it's sort of it's a strange sort of tradition, and I think you can see that they've sort of implemented that in some ways and sort of taken the piss out of it. But it's interesting. I think after Skipper the Eye Child, which is probably one of the most bizarre episodes of television that
But
I've ever
just
watched.
just on that one,
Yeah,
it's, the story is that he lost his son.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, which is half grasshopper.
half grasshopper son, which was absolutely amazing because he's just that made me laugh a lot because he just bloody bounced around a little bit and stuff.
Yeah.
How did he die again? How
He died. He died. It's explained at the end of the episode where he jumps up and there's a helicopter above. just sort of almighty silliness in this episode. It's like the third episode was just their opportunity just to go, let's go completely off the wall, even though I think actually it doesn't get better than that episode. I think I kind of like 4 and 5. I think it picked up again by 6, but I think 4 and 5 they sort of started to dry up slightly, because it kind of weirdly it became a bit samey. It sort of had the same structure as everything else. So I was kind of expecting something surreal, and when it wasn't as surreal as episode 3, it was kind of I don't know. It wasn't disappointing, but it was a sort of, because it was still funny. The episodes are still really funny, and it's a laugh a minute. But it's kind of like, I don't know. I don't think it gets better than that third episode.
So generally, they worked. Were they doctors? They were doctors, weren't they?
Yeah.
So
Jess says hi.
yeah, Jess says hi. They're doctors, but they're getting spooked by all these things.
Yeah.
I didn't understand why they were. Oh, they kind of opened some portal or something. I don't know, but it was just his books that made no sense, really.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder. I wonder if it's like, because there was a series that Lars von Trier made, sort of vaguely inspired by Twin Peaks, called Kingdom, and it was set in a hospital. It was a kind of surreal horror set in a hospital, and I wonder if Holness and Ayoade took from that. But yeah, but I think it was purely just to make it ridiculously elaborate, because I think that's sort of Garth Marenghi's drive, is to make things as elaborate as possible, and just and again, it's that kind of sort of almost amateur writer situation, where instead of like going forward with a specific narrative with plot and theme strictly going forward.
Yeah.
Garth Marenghi just goes all over the place because that's how his mind works without like editing it down or whatever. Yeah, it's a very strange series, I have to say.
Well, that's why I wish Larry was on it, because it was just, I've seen similar stuff, that type of humor, lots of times, and it was really good, but not horror, really, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of
it-
it's sort of taking the piss out of horror.
out of horror, because like even Skipper the Eye Child was amazingly funny. I think my son sat there and watched it, and Dad, what the hell is this? I was like, wow. So Larry really enjoys watching it. So yeah, we could make it, and he watched a couple of episodes with me, to be honest, and then he got bored. I can't even remember what happened in the last one. Can we talk about that? So you got the creeping moss from the shores of Sugoff. Is that right? Is that right?
Yeah, I think
Sugoff.
so. So it's the broccoli episode, isn't it?
It's
So
the broccoli one.
So something infects the water, makes it turn green, but no one notices that the water has turned green.
Oh yes, and they're dead end.
I think that's it. Yeah.
Oh,
or is that
wow.
right?
That's
Yeah.
Jason Brandt. Thanks, Jace, for watching.
Oh no, I might be wrong actually. I might be wrong. I think the green water is like turns them into. Oh no, I'm wrong. The green water turns them into monkeys or something. You can see how you can get these episodes mixed up.
Well, they're all a bit samey, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah.
In a way.
In a way.
But yeah, one of them had green water, and he didn't drink it, did he?
No.
Garth. He didn't drink it. Everyone else did.
And Richard Ayoade's character only drunk a little bit, which is why he wasn't affected. they were very emphatic on that.
So Dan's just put, never understood the grasshopper boy. Only Larry's brain can explain that. And then it would be down to interpretation anyway.
I would love to read a book that thoroughly went into a sort of like, interpretive analysis of Garth Marenghi's Darkplace. I think you could make a killing out of that. It'd be great.
Yeah, I'd love to know, because obviously I would have most likely watched something totally different to what Larry watched. He kind of could have explained it all to me. So I'm not going to spend a massive amount of time, because I've got a lot to talk about tonight, and probably we'll revisit this with Larry anyway next week. So if you were dishing out boners, what are you looking at?
I think I would give it a 7. 7 boners. I think, again, it did make me laugh a lot. It's and I think it's so inventive and so precise. Like all the decisions made and all the filmmaking decisions, even though the aim is to make it look as rubbish as possible, it's done so precisely and so elegantly. Elegantly terrible in some ways. But I think after the 3rd episode, it kind of drops off a bit, because I think I think the 3rd episode just really went off the handle and really did what they wanted to do. And I think the next episodes were kind of it felt like they were trying to parody themselves in some ways, and it was kind of it was less interesting then. And I can understand why it didn't get a second series. Because I think after a while, I would have liked to have watched this like almost week by week, because I think binging this isn't really great for your brain. I forced
it. Yeah, I forced it. Like, do you know what it's like? You're trying to do your everyday stuff in life, like trying to write invoices, and watch this at the same time, or feed children, or shout at children to stop fighting. All this stuff. Everyday life, and trying to squeeze them all in. And I would have preferred, maybe 3 episodes been good.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But yeah, I enjoyed it.
Okay. Did you watch Dan's Hot Pick?
I did not. No.
Okay, it's just going to be me.
Okay.
So let's move on to Dan's Hot Pick. So this was our pick with no.
Yeah.
This was a. Let's get to my notes. Okay, 2009 Norwegian comedy horror film, directed by Tommy Wirkola. Probably ruin that as well, like I normally do. So, 7 students on an Easter vacation arrive at a small cabin near Osford. Is that how you say it, Dan? So they arrive at this cabin, to have fun. They're out on there. What are those machines called? All those you sit on them. It's like a car with skis on, right? And you
Yeah.
about on snow. What's one of those called?
I
What?
don't know. Ski ledger. I'm not
No,
sure.
and he'd go, "Come on, Dan, give it to me. What is it?" So you can ride around on these things. So Dan's probably got one. He probably goes to work on it. So like, what are they called? It's like a snowmobile.
Snowmobile. Jess has just come in with it.
Snowmobile, Jess. Well
Yeah.
done. So like, there we go. So they're all having fun on that, and they're visited by some strange bloke telling them they really shouldn't be there, and he's off. Then he goes off camping, and he gets killed by some World War II Nazi German zombie. And there's lots of these things. I think does someone let some dynamite off or something like that, and it opens up some kind of thing in the ground, and the zombies escape and go around.
Were they all buried there?
And I've been butchering names for a couple of years, and I got no idea what that means. I have a snores quarter.
I assume that's what they call the snowmobile in.
Is it not what they call Nazi Germans? Right.
I don't know.
And it's got the little fella there with the eyes and his mouth open again. You see him? So, and it's just basically what would happen, how many decent kills you can have, how many that the kids die. I think nearly all of them. And it's a lot of fun. And I ordered it because I had it, but I thought I'd just get myself the Blu-ray. It was only a couple of pounds as well. I loved it. Had the subtitles on, so I had to do some reading, which was good. So that went down well. And I'd highly recommend it. And I wanted Larry, because Larry was meant to watch Evil Ed as well, okay, from last week, and talk about this. And I'm being, but I'd recommend it. I'd give it 7 bonus, easy. We'll watch it again soon. And there is a sequel, Dead Snow 2, Red versus Dead, I think it's called. Red versus Dead. Red versus Dead. I think that's quite English as well, isn't it? Yeah. And that was it. So hopefully Dan will come up with something else for us to get confused about next week. But yeah, I'm not sure it'd be your cup of tea, Ewan.
I'd give it a try, see what it's like. I know my dad really likes it.
Does he?
Yeah, because he's into all that sort of. He's into his like World War II history and stuff like that, and he tends to watch these documentaries, like these BBC4 documentaries or History Channel documentaries about the rise of Hitler and stuff like that. And I think he'd probably, I think that's why he likes it, because it's just dead zombies, Great.
It's perfect, really. I sat there, had a couple of beers, watched it. Brilliant stuff. Enjoyed it. Yeah, so hopefully Dan will come up with something in a bit. So it's that time of the show to say, what did we watch this week?
What have you been watching?
No, seriously, what have you been watching?
Lots. Lots and lots. I'll tell you about the first one. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do this video, because I was going to play the Dead Snow trailer a minute ago, but I'm really not confident, and I'm probably going to cock it up. So there's no point in now. So I might just move on without it, because I just can't do it. My screen's in the wrong place. So, I watched Tales from the Crypt, the Amicus collection, which is a bit like Hammer House Horror. I think they were American production company made in England. Yeah, so Tales from the Crypt, there is 6 or maybe 7 different stories with lots of famous actors in. Literally, what's that? The main story, there was one with Joan Collins in, probably 1972. Very attractive in 1972, I must say. And she kills her husband and a psychotic. I don't think I mentioned this last week, but a psychotic prisoner's escaped and stolen a Santa Claus outfit. So he's dressed as Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Knocks at their house. She's already killed her husband. Now he wants to kill her. So that's one story, and the daughter. There's another one. About some old fella lives across the street. He's a bit of an odd one, but the people across the street don't really want him living there because they think he's weird, and they stitch him up, and he kills himself, and then he comes back. So lots of stories along those lines, and there's a kind of the crypt keeper's a bit rubbish, really. It's just a monk, but he's quite a famous person plays him. So.
And what's the premise of Tales from the Crypt? Is it just?
Wow, it's just they're all there. They've all been taken there to be sent to like hell, basically.
Right.
So there are people that have done bad things, and they must pay the price for that. So it looks like at the end they're all going off to fall down into hell, basically. That's how I interpreted it, to be honest. So I watched that. I own that on Blu-ray. I've got another one to do called Vault of Horror. So it was like a double collection on Blu-ray. So yeah, I got that to do next week. I watched Bubba Hotep. I don't know if you know what that is.
Nope.
It stars Bruce Campbell as a Elvis Presley in an old people's home. So basically, Elvis wants to perform live, but as an impersonator. So he talks to an impersonator and gets him to. This impersonator will be Elvis, and here you go and do the impersonating. But the impersonator guy who's now playing Elvis dies. So Elvis is really alive still, not dead, but in an old people's home with a sore penis.
What does that mean?
So, yeah, and there's a. Oh dear! What's he say? And then there is like an Egyptian, sort of where the Bubba Ho comes from, thing haunted him, and he's sucking the life force from old people's bottoms.
Okay.
And they battle this Egyptian or mummified or whatever that is thing.
Okay.
Yeah, Jess is saying, yeah, Jason's right. It is the shit. It's amazing. And definitely that's one you need to see you in, really.
Okay.
It's a family favourite in our house.
He says Bruce Campbell, yeah, from
It is
Evil
Bruce
Dead.
Campbell. I don't know if I did have a copy of it here somewhere. You could have a look what it looked like. I don't know where it's gone. But yeah, definitely worth a watch.
Okay.
Hang on, let me just grab that. I know we're live. There you go. That's what you want to look for. Okay.
Right, okay. Gotcha.
But he's amazing. Probably the best Elvis I've ever seen, to be honest. So yeah, and check it out. I know it'd be right up your street, to be honest. You'll enjoy that. Let's move on to the next one. Hills Run Red. I watched. I'm not going to give that one away, but go and check it out. Hills Run Red. It's quite gory. It's quite graphic in parts. Well worth a watch. And we didn't do the podcast on Sunday. I know everyone was busy, so I went and watched The Batman. And it's the first time that I went to this showcase cinema, and went with the old gallery, and you can drink beer in there. So I had a pint of Heineken or two while watching. Yeah, the Batman. What can I say about this film? There were parts of it where I was looking at my son. He's only 15. He was looking at me. I'm looking at him, and this film is amazing. It is the best film I've seen at the cinema for a long time. It was much better than The Matrix, believe it or not.
I've yet to see The Matrix, so I can't pass judgment. But yeah,
it was long, but it didn't make me think. Do you know when you get you get a numb arse and that, and then you're thinking, oh, I need a piss and I need to get out of here, and but I didn't feel like that at all, even after 2 pints of Heineken, and snacks. So, what can I say? I think it was perfect, pretty much. Nothing about it annoyed me. I loved it when he kind of juiced himself up and beat the living shit out of that bloke. I think it was year 2, so he's still learning the role. Well, learning the job, I suppose, as a Batman. Yeah, it was amazing. I don't know what other people think. I know you watched it last week, didn't you? You couldn't really talk about it.
I couldn't talk about it because I'd signed a embargo saying I couldn't talk about it until the Monday after I saw it. It was an interesting one because I did really enjoy it. I thought, especially after the sort of DC EU extended universe, whatever people call it, movies about Batman with Ben Affleck and such. I think we haven't had a good Batman movie in quite a long time. I mean, certainly not since. I mean, The Dark Knight Rises was okay, but I mean, The Dark Knight was the sort of probably the zenith of Batman films, in my opinion. I haven't seen the Keaton ones, so that's probably a bad judgment. But
I like the first 2. The Keaton ones,
yeah. So I thought this one was really, really good, and I don't know what I expected, but I guess I didn't expect it to be as good as I thought it was. There are a few, so it kind of takes a very sort of neo-noir kind of feel to it, sort of atmosphere. So it's clearly taken from films like Seven. There's a bit of Zodiac in there, so very sort of David Fincher kind of bleakness to it. And Robert Pattinson is playing Batman, who's very sort of he's far less sort of hench than Ben Affleck or Christian Bale, which I kind of liked. It kind of brought a more of a humanity to him. Like when people punched him, he felt it, And I quite liked that because it was sort of it gave him a vulnerability. And the trouble with a lot of superhero movies is that they they're sort of immortal, really. They're invincible, and you can't kill them, and therein lies a problem with to do with conflict and stuff like that. So I quite liked the fact that he was vulnerable. There are a few things I didn't really like about it. I mean, I didn't think it needed to be 3 hours long, although I was never bored. That's the thing.
I can't wait for the director's cut.
Yeah,
7 hours long.
Yeah. I wasn't utterly convinced by the sort of romance between Batman and Catwoman. I liked their chemistry. I like the sort of actors' chemistry with each other, but I didn't. It was weird because I presumed, I think understandably, that that Catwoman's roommate, who they investigate, like together with Batman, was I assume that was her partner, and that she was sort of bisexual, and so I was a bit confused at the fact that sort of, and this may be reading too much into it, I'm not sure, but I was the fact that Catwoman was so drawn towards Batman after her partner was sort of kidnapped. It kind of didn't really I don't know. It didn't really convince me of their and she's always like, and it's weird because the plot points are sort of like centered around when she kisses him, and it's kind of, I don't know. I felt like they were trying to force them together when they didn't really need to be. Uh, and it's weird because I saw a newspaper report afterwards, saying that uh, the filmmaker Matt Reeves deliberately made Catwoman sexuality ambiguous, and it's funny. I didn't think it was ambiguous at all, and I do wonder whether it's a way of trying to sort of, because obviously this is a big superhero movie and there are a lot of countries in the world that don't approve of different sexualities, and you've had this before with a lot of Disney products with like Star Wars and Marvel, in that they kind of reduce the amount of sort of LGBT stuff because they don't want China to be angry, and China's a big market for those kinds of movies, and so you're seeing a kind of, I don't know, there's a kind of trepidation towards being showing LGBT relationships sort of outright because you don't want to upset international countries. Yeah, I mean, I didn't consider this as I was watching it because I just assumed that was the case. But with the comments made afterwards, it kind of like, I don't know, it kind of makes you feel a bit, I don't know, maybe it's slightly uneasy. But I did like it a lot. I did like this film, especially the Riddler, played by Paul Dano, who was perfect casting. I don't think he has done like a mainstream superhero movie before. And he's very much, I mean, Paul Dano tends to play sort of psychologically disturbed characters anyway, tends to be the sort of introvert sort of villain. And here it's kind of interesting because in light of the criticisms of Joker with Joaquin Phoenix, I personally love Joker, but a lot of the criticisms around it was that it was sort of glorifying sort of incel culture. I sort of like that in the Batman. They sort of, it's almost like they confront that thing, because Paul Dano as the Riddler is very much a sort of a rising incel, almost like a Proud Boy who's inspired by the Batman to sort of bring down authorities by themselves. And
He was no Jim Carrey though. He was no Jim Carrey, mate.
I've seen clips of Jim Carrey as the Riddler. It was, yeah.
It was amazing. It was a different Riddler to what I've ever seen, even in the old 60s TV show.
Yeah,
which I nearly revisited the other day.
I'm not sure if again, I haven't seen like any of the animated Batmans. I think the only other Batman property I've seen that's away from like sort of mainstream movies is the first Arkham Asylum game. But interestingly, the Riddler's not really featured much in. I mean, it's certainly the first time in a while that the Riddler's been featured. I wonder if that is because of like memories of Jim Carrey, because it's sort of he's quite a sort of like a bouncy character, and you know, with the DCEU and with the Dark Knight and stuff like that, it's kind of like because these films aspired to be much darker than sort of that sort of stuff. It's sort of, they sort of avoided it, but I think they've done it quite well. I mean, obviously, I'm not I'm not a massive sort of comic book fan personally, so I might be getting all this wrong, but it's sort of it was an interesting take on sort of a beloved villain, I suppose. Also, I didn't quite understand. There was an aspect. I mean, I'm sure Lawrence will be able to clear this up, or you, or whatever. But he's constantly referred to as Vengeance. It's almost like another name. And I didn't understand that personally. I don't know
if he was called Batman yet, was he, or not?
But the Riddler calls him Batman because he gives him the letters and stuff. So he clearly has the Batman. But maybe I
quite like Vengeance. It's good.
Yeah, and it's fine. It's just I didn't understand. They didn't explain it at all, and I wonder if that's like deep comic book lore or something that people who were into it really understood, but that people like me who haven't read them sort of didn't.
I haven't read any of them. So like, I love that, and I might go again next week. I am considering it. because I like to watch a film a couple of times before I actually know what's going on. So I might go again next week. So that was pretty much all I've watched. That's a fair bit though. So what have you been watching?
So today I was invited to go to a screening of Red Rocket, which is a new film by Sean Baker, who did the Florida Project a few years ago with Willem Dafoe. It's quite a sort of indie movie about a retired porn star who goes back from he travels from Los Angeles to his hometown in Texas and goes to visit his wife, who he's separated from, and wants to live there because it's clearly he's run out of money, and he wants to sort of chat with them for a few days, but a few days turns into a few weeks, and he tries to get a job, but no one hire him, so he ends up dealing drugs. And it's a very interesting film because at sort of the first half hour, I was sort of, despite the fact this guy is a bit of an asshole, I was a bit of like, yeah, I quite like this guy. His personality is quite sort of out there, but I'm sort of enjoying him. But then after half an hour, he becomes even more and more of a dick. And interesting thing about the film is that it didn't actually put me off the film at all. It was genuinely fascinating just to watch him go about his life, sort of like he kind of manipulates people, especially women. He then sort of forms a quite a dodgy sexual relationship with a 17-year-old girl who works at a donut shop, and it's kind of, and then he's sort of like he's quite predatory. It's not like it's not like pedophile territory, but it's kind of because there's a kind of, I don't know, he's not nice, but he's not like awful. He's not a horrible person, but he's very kind of like, he almost grooms her to be like an aspiring porn actress for when she turns 18, and it's a really sort of, it's really gross, but I was just sitting there kind of like almost fascinated to see where this story goes. And similar to the Florida Project, Sean Baker really loves the world in which he explores, and it's almost, even though it's very kind of almost true to life, it's very much like he creates these little spots, like he creates like the donut shop and like a local supermarket, and there's like a called the food store and stuff like that. So it's very much in this world, and you can like imagine it. It's very much a character piece, and luckily, and I think it's good actually, because a lot of times with these sorts of films where it's like a horrible character at the center of it, a lot of times there's a kind of that they kind of like morally redeem him, like, or they give him a sub story or stuff like that. But Sean Baker disposes of all that entirely. It's kind of like he's saying, this guy is an asshole. You have to deal with that, and there's no excuse for it. He's just a terrible person, and I quite like that. I thought it was quite brave, because I think there are a few directors who can like tell a story and keep the audience hooked when there's this, when it's an asshole at the center of it. I thought it was very good, and I quite enjoy it. But again, it's sometimes not an easy watch, because you just see someone doing sort of heinous things in some ways. I mean, he doesn't like go out and murder anyone, but it's sort of like it's on the sort of, he's a sort of hedonistic horror show in some ways. So yeah, I sort of recommend that. I also have been rewatching My Brilliant Friend, which is a Italian series. It's very good. It's about two best friends in Naples who grew up during sort of mid 20th century Italy, in Naples, and it's a really lovely sort of coming of age tale about how women were often discouraged from education, but these two girls like stick at their education and be well. And there's a lot of sort of aspects of classism as well, in that a lot of the working class kids were sort of discouraged and told not to go educate because we don't want to educate the working class people. and then they sort of grow up, and you sort of see their lives sort of differing. So one girl goes on to sort of high school and middle school, and eventually to university, whilst the other girl sort of falls deeper into poverty and works in a shoe shop and has to sort of struggle on her own. It's based on the Elena Ferrante novels, which are best-selling novels. It's a really good show, and I've been rewatching that because the third season's coming out this week. I think America got it a couple of weeks ago, but yeah, third season's coming out this week.
Nice.
So that's good. Also, lastly, I've been rewatching episodes of The Simpsons because I have a Disney Plus subscription, and I thought, oh, this might because I'd run out of things to watch in the morning.
Are they all on there?
Yeah, all of them are on there. So
Wow.
I think I started from like season 5, which is pretty much the Simpsons episodes that I sort of grew up on. And they're so funny, and it's funny nowadays because all the classic Simpsons are sort of memed in some ways, and you can see all the sort of memes of the Simpsons, those classic episodes of the Simpsons, like all around. And it's funny watching the actual episodes where the memes occur. But it's so sort of, I mean, it's surreal. It's funny. I watched the Treehouse of Horror episode where they take the piss out of They take the piss out of Shining recently, and it's just like just excellent, just excellent piss taking done in such a small amount of time, and the animation's amazing as well. I mean, it's probably a bit dated by today's standards, but it's so sort of strange at times. It's so sort of graphic, and it goes into directions that you're just not expecting. And there's a reason why it's often called the best cartoon ever made. I'm not sure if it's if it's still as good. I mean, I don't think any of the recent episodes sort of hold to the same standard as the ones that I'm watching now, but it's still it's very enjoyable just to go back and watch all of these, even though I've seen them a million times. They're still great.
Excellent. So Dan sent over Dan's pick, which is called Climax.
Yes.
That might 2018.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Drama musical. Is he taking the piss?
No, it's
a group of French dancers gather in an empty school to rehearse and party. However, their celebration soon turns into a nightmare when they realize that their drinks are spiked with LSD. Yeah, okay.
It's a great movie.
It is French, is it? Or...
It's French movie. It's directed by Gaspar Noé, who did things like Irreversible, Into the Void. And I think this one was like initially like almost like a side project in some ways, but it's because it's very small, it's very centered, it's very focused, but it's crazy. I think the first 20 minutes are a bit sort of laborious, but once you get over those 20 minutes, it's like a really sort of hypnotic, psychedelic experience. It's really sort of, I think I've seen it twice. It's good.
Okay. Well, look forward to that. Larry's got 3 to watch in the next.
Yeah.
Next week, I think we mentioned, and I think I put it on the group chat. Maybe Drag Me to Hell, or was it Drag You to Hell, or what is it?
I think it's Drag Me to Hell, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or Drag Us to Hell.
Drag Me to Hell.
Drag Me to Hell. Okay.
Which I've seen a few times. I think I own it. So, yeah, why not? Hopefully, we get all 4 of us on next week.
Yep.
And that'll be our episode 72, which is absolutely madness. Thanks for everyone in the group chat. YouTube chat tonight. That's been great fun. Sorry I couldn't do the trailers and things, but I'm just not capable. Not with where my screen is. Yeah, so next week we will be back with our episode. Was it 72? I think it is. Yeah. Episode 72, Drag Me to Hell. So we will see you all next week. Thanks for listening and watching. Cheers.
Bye.